He's been referred to as the man keeping rock alive or the man who saved rock and roll, and that's a direct quote from Eddie Trunk about himself. I'm only kidding. I do like listening to Eddie Trunk whenever I come across a show or hear clips of him on YouTube, but not everyone counts themselves a fan of the radio host. In today's video, let's take a look at Eddie, I Know Everybody in that band Trunk, and the Rockstars he's feuded with. Just for some background on Trunk, it was in the mid-80s he started working at Megaforce Records, who had both Metallica and Anthrax on their roster. It was at the young age of 25, he was soon the vice president of the company, and he even got his name as the executive producer on a couple big records, including from bands like Anthrax, Raven, Overkill, and Ace Frehley. It was throughout the 80s and 90s he got into radio broadcasting, and you might also remember him from VH1 with that metal show. He's still in broadcasting today, frequently being heard on Sirius XM, so let's get on to the feuds. Lizzy Borden would speak with Mark Morton at Heavy Metal Examiner, and he would take a shot at Eddie Trunk. When asked why he never appeared on that metal show, he would reveal he's actually one of those folks who doesn't like us referring to Trunk. He doesn't get it, doesn't understand it, and just doesn't want to know. He'd go on to reveal playing Rocklahoma and how his band was supposed to do an interview with Trunk, but the radio host apparently never showed up. Trunk was also supposed to see the band set, with Borden adding he only saw the last 20 seconds of it, and then he went on his radio show and slammed us on his TV show too. Borden would add that Trunk only covers stuff he's interested in, adding he's probably getting caught up in his own fame too. Trunk would end up responding to the interview, claiming that he's never met Lizzy Borden and how he's supported bands in the past that he was never personally into, and how he's into countless acts that he doesn't play on a show because his audience doesn't care. As for Rocklahoma, Trunk would claim he doesn't interview bands who are so low on the bill, and his contract only calls for him to interview the closing 3 acts of each day. He'd also add he never badmouthed the band on his radio show or TV show, and he would add a parting shot saying, considering the lack of interest in the guy's career after decades, I'm not surprised he's bitter. Ouch. Static X would have some criticism as well. Members Tony Campos and Edsel Dope would speak to the Battle Line podcast, and the topic of bands using pre-recorded tapes came up, something Trunk has been a critic of. Campos would tell the podcast, I don't understand why anybody listens to that guy. He's not a musician, he has no experience performing live. Why listen to his opinion? Dope, meanwhile, would cite efficiency, claiming that bands from the 70s that Trunk was into used to bring a lot of backup singers and musicians to round out their live shows, but bands these days don't need to do that anymore because of technological advancements. Also, it comes down to economics as well. They can't house and feed 26 people on tour. Radio host Eddie I Know Everybody Trunk has long expressed his distaste for the band Steel Panther. It was during his show that he was asked to name one band he never thought would make it, and he singled out Steel Panther, saying, "It amazes me, the amount of shows and attention. They've gotten huge in England, but in America, they're still basically a House of Blues level band, but it always amazed me how popular Steel Panther got from what they started out as, which was a band called Metal School. They're still a parody, a spoof on 80s rock. I think there's a segment of their fan base that isn't even in on the joke, that is younger." It was a year earlier he was a little more critical of the band, saying, "I have nothing personal against anybody in the band. They're good people, they're good players, and all that, but it's a spoof, it's an act, it's mocking 80s hard rock. My time and energy are going to be invested into the bands from that era that are still trying to make new, credible, real music. The bass player Lexi Fox literally applies makeup while the show is happening. His hands aren't even on the bass, because I guess they were running a track or something." Guitarist Sasha would respond to Trunk's comments as he said here.
People that they look at the cover of the book and they go, I'm going to hate that book. I'm not going to read it. You know, like Eddie Trunk. Like Eddie Trunk hates us. And that's...
He doesn't hate butter.
He doesn't know what we sound like. Somebody asked him a question one time. They went, okay, well, you know, they've got this song like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he went, oh, yeah, no, I know. I've heard, well, that song's probably about this. They went, well, haven't you listened to it? And he went, no, but I'm sure it's probably like he hadn't even listened to the song he was critiquing by us. And I thought, well, if that doesn't take your credibility away as a reviewer, I don't know what will. You can't bag on a band without actually listening to it.
Rob Blasko Nicholson of Ozzy Osbourne's band would slam Trunk in a tweet he put out in late 2019, writing, "Was just listening to Eddie Trunk live on SiriusXM. That dude can go get effed. Since when is this D-bag the ambassador of metal?" he would write. Trunk would respond with a tweet saying, "Heard that Blasko said some stuff about me on Twitter while listening to my Saturday show. Don't know the guy, no idea what his problem is," he would write. I first became aware of this feud back in 2015 or 2016, I think, when Eddie I Know Everybody Trunk briefly appeared on Howard Stern's SiriusXM show and talked about his problem with Sharon Osbourne. Trunk would claim that Sharon has barred Ozzy from appearing on his radio program or when he had that metal show on VH1 Classics. He would tell Steppin' Out in 2012, "She apparently has some issue with me. I don't know her and have no idea what it is. She's not allowed Ozzy on the TV show after all these years." Trunk used to have a radio program on the SiriusXM channel Boneyard, but once it became Ozzy's Boneyard, Trunk's program got moved to Hair Nation. It was a move that upset Trunk, as he does not think it's a good pairing, as he claims the music he plays on his show is not just limited to hair metal. Trunk would add in the same interview, "You have to ask Sharon Osbourne. She's decided my 4 hours of live radio a week was not going to work for her when the Boneyard became Ozzy's Boneyard. It's bizarre for sure. I have never said anything critical about Ozzy that he didn't say about himself many times." It was years later that Eddie Trunk would reveal that one possible source of the feud is that he's had a number of Ozzy's former bandmates on the show, which have spoken pretty critically of Sharon Osbourne as a manager, claiming they've been ripped off by her. This is a feud that's not entirely clear where it originated from. While Trunk has been a longtime fan of Kiss, he's also stated on his show that he is not a blind worshipper of any band, and has called out Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons several times, and that could be where the beginning of the feud started. In addition to that, Trunk is also friends with former Kiss guitarist Ace Frehley. Trunk would claim that Kiss is a sensitive band, and any criticism of the group comes with being branded an enemy of the band. Trunk would also claim on his show that the world would have to end before Paul Stanley would ever agree to come on his show and be interviewed. In March of 2022, Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins would pass away while the band was on tour. It was shortly after his death 2 tribute shows would be announced for the drummer, both taking place in September of the same year. A few weeks before the first show was announced, Eddie Trunk would take to Twitter to post the following message. "All of the Taylor Hawkins tribute stuff looks amazing and well-deserved, but every Van Halen fan has to be trying to figure out how 2 massive events in 2 countries could come together in months for Taylor, and almost 2 years after Eddie Van Halen passed, nothing." Guitarist Eddie Van Halen would pass away in late 2020 after a long battle with cancer. It's believed that Trunk's tweet was in response to an interview his son Wolfgang gave to Rolling Stone, where the topic of a tribute show was discussed, where he said the following: "What I can say is that there's an attempt at doing something, but I don't speak negatively about people. But there's some people who make it very difficult to do anything when it comes to Van Halen." Wolfgang would respond to Trunk's comments on Twitter and fans who shared a similar sentiment, saying, "It's not my job to help you people deal with my dad dying. If I can even begin to try and collect myself during all the immature harassment from this type of passive-aggressive arguments and insults for the past 2 years, then you can figure it out too. I'm just so done." This is one of the funniest feuds Trunk's been involved with. Late last year, the band Falling in Reverse had to cancel a festival appearance after their laptops went missing. Frontman Ronnie Radke would put out a statement explaining the cancellation, saying, "As a band in 2022, you need your laptops. It's like driving a car without an engine." Well, SiriusXM host Eddie Trunk would state on his show, and I quote, "This is astounding. First I heard about this, I thought it was a joke to wind me up. How much longer are fans, promoters, media just going to accept the epidemic of live rock shows not really being live? Paying your hard-earned money to see a band play live that's not truly live? And there's countless bands in 2022 that hone their craft and play live. Tons, new and old, including the one that subbed for them in their slot, Jackal. No laptop needed there, but at least I give them credit for being honest. Wow, I'm closer than ever to launching my own band, and I can't sing or play a note. Simply amazing." The radio host would then go on to sing Aerosmith's praises due to their live shows, when in fact Aerosmith is a band that also uses live tapes for Steven Tyler's vocals. Radke would respond to Trunk on Twitter saying, "So you want to talk hella shit about laptops, but go watch Kiss lip sync? Steven Tyler played the piano, then halfway through the song he stands on top of the piano while it still plays, yet we are here acting like they don't use tracks, you effing idiot. Literal moron." The feud would then rope in former Skid Row frontman Sebastian Bach, who's a friend of Trunk. Radke would claim that Bach uses tracks during live shows, something he denied. Radke would then go back and forth with Bach and finish things up, saying how he once looked up to the frontman but no longer does. Eddie Trunk would take the first shot in this feud by posting a video of the Finnish band Santa Cruz playing a concert using a backing track, as you can see here. Trunk would then call out the Finnish rockers, stating on social media, "This is beyond words. Everyone, I guess, is just okay with this. As I've said and I've been saying, this has become an epidemic that needs to stop. So bad it's to the point that the band doesn't even attempt to fake their lip syncing. Stunning. Imagine paying to see a band you love live and it's anything but. What's the point? Imagine you're a band that puts work in to be live and others don't, play to a computer and fans talk about how great they sound. Pathetic. It's the norm in pop, it's gotta stop in rock. Bands, fans, and promoters have to care that a live rock show is live, or it'll only get worse. Madness." The group's frontman Archie would respond saying, "This is my vocal, this is what I do live, that's my track, that's 100% live, and what we had in the PA was an octave lower harmony and an octave higher harmony to build. So please do not talk about something you don't know anything about, or do not accuse me of doing something that's not true, so piss off and shut the F up," he would say. Archie would end up apologizing to Trunk, and Trunk would respond saying, "As I said on my show yesterday, the issue I have is way beyond Santa Cruz Band. I actually liked the band and had Archie on once. I appreciate the apology, but I personally will always believe live rock should be live, and a ton of bands do not play the tracks." That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.